How much would it take for you to give 60 seconds of your time?
You go to Jack Dorsey's neighborhood, and from there, you have an experience. You're seeing what Jack Dorsey sees.
I just work in a completely different space where things don't get done this quickly. So I was like, this is amazing.
Mandana humbly believes that NextBlock is the future of Bitcoin.
You've got to know there needs to be a business model, Jack. Come on. You're listening to Flirting with Bitcoin, a weekly chat with my very interesting husband about Bitcoin and how the world and our family's life is better because of it.
It's season 4, and we've moved to Nostr City.
So my Bitcoin lessons are done?
Your Bitcoin lessons are never done.
So what does new social media have to do with it?
Babe, Nostr is more than social media. If Bitcoin is the new money, Nostr is the new internet.
You really think so?
I do. I believe Nostr will drive the next wave of Bitcoin adoption. So Nostr City is where we need to be.
We?
Yeah, of course we're bringing Keon. You got your bags packed, buddy?
Yes.
Good job. Don't forget to pack your NPUB.
Let's go. Hey, Ian.
Hey, Mandana.
So, cat's out of the bag. We started a company.
Correct.
Yeah, we were like dancing around it. Didn't really want to give everything away until it was all ready to go. But last week, we flew to Amsterdam and we got to launch our company at this event called Nostradam, which was for Nostr people, a day before the Bitcoin conference. And then we went to the Bitcoin conference. We talked to everyone about the company idea, talked with people that really understood Nostr and Bitcoin to see if they liked the idea, if they could poke any holes in it. Flew right back on Friday. Then we drove up to Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, Saturday for Nostr Valley, another Nostr event. Got to pitch the whole idea there as well to everyone in attendance. And
also online,
and same kind of general response. People liked the idea, didn't really poke holes in it. Just to say, like, we thought everything through, I think. You know, we've been sitting on this for about a year. Life kind of went back to normal yesterday. We got to see Keon after a whole week. We've been spending time with him. And before the weekend ends and we hit the ground running tomorrow, I wanted to just like get our thoughts out.
Sounds good. So what are your thoughts?
Well, we have a lot to do. My thoughts are that, one, I think that how we build this company should be a little public.
How public?
Like, we have a podcast, right? And so I'm thinking, how on earth can we not talk about NextBlock when we record? Because I think that NextBlock is the future of Bitcoin. I really do. As crazy as that is.
Mandana humbly believes.
Look.
That NextBlock is the future of Bitcoin.
Not just NextBlock, but yes, I do.
I didn't say just.
One important integral piece to mass Bitcoin adoption.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so much to talk about with the events that we went to this past week, just from the perspective of like, if you are someone who's trying to learn about Bitcoin and going to somewhere like this, that experience in and of itself, I think we could do a whole episode on. But what feels very urgent for me is to just talk to people who listen to our podcast about NextBlock and this company that we're starting and what it means and why this is the project. Like, I think there are a lot of things that we could have done possibly, you and I, through all of the different things we've been talking about. But why we got here and how we're going to build it, all of those reasons, I think, align with everything we've been talking about the past 3 years.
Me too.
And so, yeah, I believe that we should talk about the why and the how and make that a way for anyone who's interested in NextBlock or the development of NextBlock, or particularly the development of the attention marketplace on Nostr, to just listen in. This can be the place where those discussions maybe start off.
NextBlock as a company doesn't really need a super big media presence right now. We are the media presence. So
yeah, something like that.
We'll talk about it here until, future notice. But yeah, as Mandana was alluding to, we've been working on this for a year, and this was like the first week that we actually just kind of talked about it openly, didn't beat around the bush with anybody, and the response was pretty solid. I was just surprised at the reaction to it. I thought I was going to have to debate and argue my point about why we're doing NextBlock and how we're doing it, but no one really wanted to debate or argue with me. They just wanted to like.
The things I argued with people about was how we were going to build this and how we were going to fund this. The very interesting thing is, like Ian said, we didn't really know what to expect. We think NextBlock is a really good idea, and we'll talk more specifically about the idea in a second. People would very bluntly say, "So what do you need? What do you need?" And we didn't really have an answer for it because we are trying to do this in a really honest way. It's a social media company. NextBlock is a social media app that pays you to watch ads. That's what it is. Very simply, very bluntly, and I think that's what most people who ultimately use it, that's what they're going to say it is. But Bitcoin and Nostr makes it possible. And I think for us, this wasn't something that we wanted to do, but the idea that we had for the attention marketplace, it didn't grab anyone's interest. And so we realized that this is just something that we have to build ourselves. And then, we wanted to have some fun with it, to actually build something that we would use. But with that said, it means that we're starting a social media company. Which, like, what? Ian and Mandana from Flirting with Bitcoin are starting a social media company.
Yeah, it sounds crazy when you say it out loud.
That's what it is, but it's so weird. And so with that, it's like, first of all, we don't want to. Second of all, okay, if we're going to do it, we want to do it in a way that is almost as decentralized as possible, where we're only making a few decisions and we're being very transparent about those decisions. But everything else is really just up to you guys, like how people use it. It's up to you. And you don't even have to use it. It's Nostr. You can like hop around different apps. But this is just what we want to build because we think this is what people want right now based on the general trend of how people are moving from different social media applications. And so the design and the features and those types of things, we have not really talked about outside of the events that we went through, but we want to talk about them today. So if you're listening and you have not yet read or watched our manifesto, right now go to joinnextblock.com, just pause the episode and read or watch the video. Then come right back.
Get the power back, get the freedom back, get an NPUB, and just start with that.
Thanks for coming back. So you're probably wondering, how are we going to pay people to watch ads? Like, what does that even mean? So it's actually pretty simple. The experience itself is going to be opt-in. And so right now there's no ads on Nostr, but if you opt in, you're going to be asked to set a price for your attention. So how much would it take for you to give 60 seconds of your time? You set a price. It can be 100 Satoshis. It could be a Bitcoin. It's whatever you want. And then whenever there's a new Bitcoin block, if the marketplace can match you up with an ad that's going to pay you what you're asking for, at least what you're asking for, you'll see an ad, and at the end of it, you'll get paid out Bitcoin through Lightning technology. There's a lot of details to how that technology is going to work and how that whole structure is going to be set up. And Ian has proposed that actually several months ago on GitHub. So do you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah. So if you're a listener of the podcast, I went up to New York a couple months ago to PubKey. They were having a Nostr event, and I went there in the hopes of presenting the idea of the, I think we were calling it BTC ad server at the time. I had just watched the BTC pay server documentary, and I was really inspired by that. And so I was like, we're going to take this angle of an open source server that's going to do this idea. And I went up there, and again, nobody really was critical of the idea, but it did have a flaw in it, which was, well, which client is going to be the first client to implement this idea?
Who's going to put ads on Nostr? No one's going to want to put ads on Nostr.
Yeah, and so the Nostr community, you could make the case that a lot of people are on Nostr to avoid ads, right? And so, I acknowledged that at the time and figured, well, if I make the case for the attention marketplace strong enough, like somebody will take a chance, somebody will. Then as we were working on the like fundamentals of the marketplace, which is what Mondan is talking about, that's on GitHub, basically I created this NIP for Nostr that would implement this attention marketplace. And it was through doing that, I just came to the conclusion or, acceptance, if you will, that it's actually crazy for me to ask a Nostr client to be the first to try that. if I were a Nostr client developer and someone came to me asking me to do that, I know that I would probably say no to begin with, right? Because like you'll be ostracized. You will actually be a different client at that point. And so we kind of started mocking out the idea of, well, if we had to make a client, what would we make? And it was around that time that Mandana like wrote this post on Nostr about how people who use TikTok are actually going to TikTok because they feel like they're escaping this like algorithmic hell, if you will. Not necessarily that TikTok doesn't have an algorithm, but like they're trying to find a better one.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in and read the post because it's really interesting how much my my post on Nostr inspired Ian. And I think ultimately that night when we discussed my post on our couch is when our idea for the genesis of NextBlock came. I actually named it NextBlock that night, I think maybe. But it's actually a response to a post from Svetsky where he said why Nostr is struggling, ... There's too much overlap with X, not only in feature sets among the primary applications, but more importantly in the kind of audience that Nostr is catering to. Puts a lot in that post. And I reposted it, I quoted it, and I said, I was just incredibly frustrated by that post because I understood it, but I feel like I just could not believe how obvious what I was going to contribute to this conversation was. But especially after this past week, I see that, wow, like the Nostr community is very siloed. They are Twitter users. They love Twitter. They have very low desire for experiencing a different format of that social media. They just want to kind of improve their Twitter experience.
I said this the other day, like Jack Dorsey's trying to make a better Twitter.
Yeah, and I totally get that. But I think if you like Twitter because that's where the intellectuals are, that's not the only place the intellectuals are. And I really hope that as there are people on Nostr trying to improve the social media experience, they need to go where everyone's on social media right now, and it's not Twitter. So this is what I wrote. We should be catering to and courting to TikTokers. They do care about censorship resistance. They think TikTok is their best option because Meta's and X's algorithms cater to only established profiles. They have 1 billion global users and growing, 100 million users in the US. Most TikTokers believe in community and helping each other and saving themselves from capitalism. They share our ethos and are curious and are open-minded. The content creators push out so much content to make money and barely do. They constantly complain on the lack of clarity on how much they're paid and how often TikTok changes the rules. They will love zaps. There is a common comment TikTokers put on a post they deeply relate to or enjoy. Quote, I built this For You page brick by brick. The For You page is their profile on their TikTok algorithm. I'm sorry, it's their feed. It's their profile feed, meaning they've liked or blocked certain things to ensure that their For You page is curated for them. They're halfway there. These are your people, Nostr. Stop being snobs. Love you.
Wow, I forgot how you wrote that post.
Yeah, what do you think?
No, it's good. I've actually forgot. I just kind of remember reading it once and then my brain just like went off.
Yeah.
Like working on solving that problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Immediately we were like, okay, we can do this.
And yeah, like now you reading it again, like 3 months later, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what NextBlock is built to do.
Yeah. It wasn't even 3 months ago. It was sooner than that.
Okay, well, whatever it was, I haven't reread it.
I don't even know. Yeah, I maybe the number was wrong on that date, but I am so convinced that this is the way.
Shout out to Quicks.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want NextBlock to be able to show any type of content, like a post, like a tweet, whatever, photos or carousel photos or a video, but truly the way that people are preferring to ingest content is through videos and honestly through selfies, conversations where people are just talking to you. It's actually more human connection than Twitter and these other platforms. And of course, there's like highly produced content also that's coming out there, but there are many revolutions that are happening on TikTok. And I truly do not think that it makes sense to be working on growing a new version of social media or decentralized communication without looking at, one, why everyone is moving to TikTok, and then two, what are all the things that TikTok is restricting on their app? Because those are things that we should make sure we are free to do. Because if TikTok, Meta, any of these big social media companies are choosing to restrict people from doing certain things, it's because of one of two things. Either it's to be able to control their minds, manipulate their minds, or it's to keep them addicted and to keep them in that app. So we need to look at what these social media companies are doing, and we need to do the opposite. And with that, what I think is really interesting and almost damaging is that we are all addicted to social media. And now we are in this movement where we're trying to grow a social media protocol. And so how do we protect ourselves from not becoming addicted to that? And so it's really fascinating, where I think all of the people in the Grow Nostr movement need to be really mindful of how much of their attention they are giving Nostr. Because while it's very important, I think we need to be more strategic. And I think the work that the people have done in this community for the past 2 years, like, just wow, like, what type of person does it take to be so innovative and such an early adopter? Like, truly, anyone who's on Nostr before me is just wow. You are the people that like move societies forward. I am not one of those people. I am early majority. And as early majority, like, let me come help push this and create something that will get other people other than you guys on, because you guys are not the norm. You guys are very special. And TikTok, I believe, is doing a lot of good things. They're doing a lot of things right. One of those is it only shows one thing at one time. Ian's nodding his head. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I actually think that's one of the key features, not key features, but key differences between quote unquote Twitter and, textual based stuff and NextBlock, which is we're acknowledging what's actually going on, which is your attention is being focused in a direction. And so if you're doing things to, while focusing that attention, distract the person with all these things surrounding it, that doesn't sound like a rational decision. So why are they doing it?
It's overstimulating.
Yes.
It's just overstimulating.
It's to produce as much dopamine as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think one piece of NextBlock that's very important to Ian and I is that we don't want you to stay in the app a certain amount of time for us to make money. And that the way that we've set up the business model is like, we make money, but for it to continue, for the ads to keep coming and for people to keep coming online, good content needs to be there. And I believe good content exists, but how do you present that information? How do you make discovery easy? How do you make it a fun place to kind of hop around the internet and see different discussions? And I believe the features that we have come up with might work. I know that what we have now does not work, but I'm really excited for us to try this. And the really cool thing is, if it works, that's awesome. And if it doesn't work, at least we've established the attention marketplace. We open source it. Everyone can use it. We can fund Nostr building. We can get our attention back. We can take down the chaos cartel. Like, so much good will still come out of it. But I think our features are really cool. And the best part of this past week has been when we've gotten a chance to like really talk through the whole concept and a lot of our other ideas for NextBlock that, like, you can't fit in a 20-minute presentation. And there's this moment of like pure impatience of someone being like, man, I wish it existed right now. I want to go on it right now. And I'm like, yay, yes, that's the point. Yes, let's build it. Let's get this done.
It just sounds obvious, but you would never expect a social media company to say it or do it.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, Facebook would never, but it's like, we're not trying to be Facebook.
We're not trying to be Facebook. I'm not trying to have global headquarters in every major country. I'm not trying to have big conferences that fly out all of my employees for a week to Bali. Like, I just want us to operate something that's honest and works and lets us live comfortable lives where we're not selling our souls to a mission that is at minimum creating like more inefficiencies in society.
Yeah, you were using the term detox. I think that's a really cool way of looking at it, where we're all addicted to this system that we call quote unquote social media. But over the years, as we've now see it as an addiction, it's like, well, you need to treat it like an addiction. Mm-hmm. And the first way you treat an addiction is to detox, like to get whatever it is out of your system. But you don't want to go cold turkey.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because that would make you go crazy probably also. So like,
And it would be isolating. Look, social media is here.
it's the social part, right?
Yeah,
and so
the internet is here. Whether or not you're on the internet, you cannot escape the impact of how these algorithms and companies control our lives, the narratives of our lives, history now. They're shaping our realities.
And ironically, like technologies like Bitcoin and Nostr exist, it also helps to point out that's happening. You can be in a place where it's incapable of happening, and then you have almost a different reality over there. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on over there? Like, this is some very easily verifiable information that does not seem to be able to surface over here, right? And so I don't know if you saw, just to bring up a great example, now they're saying ivermectin might cure cancer.
Well.
Okay. A $4 drug that's been passed around the entire world over, I think, 10 billion doses of it, just keeps getting better.
Man, I hope so.
Keeps getting better.
So back to NextBlock. I'm going to quickly run through our features, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to actually build this app. All right, so NextBlock was inspired by the superblocks in Spain. They were a response to high levels of noise and air pollution. It was really hard to get around. The quality of life was really bad. And there was a city planner, what was his name?
Salvador Rueda.
Ultimately, after 15, 20 years, the Superblock project was able to thoughtfully design people and green spaces so that people didn't have to travel far distances in the city to get where they needed. Like about 70% of where they needed to go was within their super block, like the groceries or store or anything like that. So most of the time people are just walking. And it was just such a successful model. And we believe that that's what we can do with social media. The idea is thinking of your phone as your house. And when you go into NextBlock, you're opening your door. And the first thing that you see when you open your door is?
Your block.
Yeah. So your block is 21 people that you've assigned to your block. And you can see their content and only their content. And so that includes replies and comments on their posts. You're just seeing what they have posted. The idea is that you're deciding where your attention goes. So if there's a spam bot on their post or somebody else that you don't know or you haven't chosen to want to see their stuff, you won't see it. Obviously, we'll have toggle buttons if you want to see what else is going on, but generally you're on your block. That's all you see. You've walked around your block, you've seen what's going on. You walk a little bit more and suddenly you're in your
neighborhood.
Neighborhoods is the best part of NextBlock. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff going on, but I think neighborhoods gets to the heart of what we want algorithms to do for us, but we're going to do it for ourselves. So at NextBlock, we're using different words. We're not using fiat legacy social media terms. So there's no followers, there's no follower count.
There's no friends.
Yeah. You're not God. And this ain't real. This is the internet. I don't know. There are contacts, right? It's think of it as your phone book, your contacts list. You meet people, they're strangers. You exchange information. You have them as a contact. If you want to see their stuff when you're on the NextBlock and you want them to be in your neighborhood, you can add them to your neighborhood. So just like the block, anything you see is stuff that they've posted, replied, or comments. You're not going to see anything else. Again, skirting away from the problem of bots. You won't even have to deal with it because if they're not in your neighborhood, you shouldn't see it. If somehow a bot got into your neighborhood, you could come out. Let's say you don't want to do all that labor of curating this awesome neighborhood for yourself. But you meet Ian, he tells you about Nostr. You just hop into his neighborhood and you see what's going on there. And if you find different accounts that you like, you can hop into their neighborhood. The idea is to make discovery easier, but also make it possible for people to decide for themselves what they want to see in that moment and have it never be set in stone. The really cool different features about the neighborhood, I think, is what gets people the most excited when we're talking to them. And they're like, I wish this existed right now. Two of the coolest things is, of course, you have Zaps on Nostr right now. But if you are someone who's I have really good taste in curating a social media experience, I find really cool accounts. Let's say you're really into cooking and you're I know the best chefs that are on Nostr and the best recipe accounts, the best food influencers, and your neighborhood is just so fun. You can just hop into it if you just want to see what's going on in the cooking world. and I'm in your neighborhood when an ad shoots out of the attention marketplace. The neighborhood owner, the person who runs the neighborhood, gets a cut of the ad because they're getting paid for the labor that they've put into that neighborhood experience. And it's not just like a one-time thing. You're going to have to maintain your neighborhood because if somebody all of a sudden is firing off like, I don't know, unnecessary, like hateful things or just like nude pics, whatever, the person running the neighborhood doesn't clean that stuff up. Like, you don't have to stay in that neighborhood. You can just leave. You don't have to go yell at that person. You don't have to report at something. Just get out. Or you can ask them to take it out. Like, whatever you want. You're all adults. Figure it out. I'm not getting involved. It's not my problem. I'm busy. I'm running a social media company. What? I'm sorry. You want me to hire like a team of hundreds of people who are going to go and read everything? No, just get out of the neighborhood. Go somewhere else. You'll be okay.
Go back to your neighborhood. Go back to your block.
Exactly. Now, how do you know if like a neighborhood's bumping? How do I know like, oh, this is a really fun neighborhood. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. People that are in that neighborhood post a lot at like around this time. So when I go, it's still Nostr, so there's no algorithm. You got to be there when it's happening. Ian had a really good idea for how to measure
vibrancy.
Ooh, vibrancy.
Yeah, so we know that in the real world, there are always the like hot spots in town, right? So here in DC, it's 18th Street and probably DuPont. And those are like the cool neighborhoods, but they're also cool because they're nightlife neighborhoods. So if someone was asking me like, oh, when is DuPont bumping or when should I go out? It's like, oh, after 8 o'clock, you go to these places.
Yeah.
Before 8 o'clock, it's a different vibe, right?
Or at this time, it's more
just
chill.
Corporate time,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we wanted to bring that concept to the internet and to NextBlock and say that neighborhoods have vibrancy also. And what we want to do is actually measure this and show this to you over time to say, this is when this particular neighborhood is vibrant. And so the way that we're going to measure that is just a simple count, some heuristic, but it'll be published online. It'll be open source. You'll be able to see the measurement. But basically some count of original posts, replies, comments, and zaps. And so with that combination, we feel like we can tell you what's the best day of the week for that neighborhood, and then what's the best hour of the day for that neighborhood. When we were in Amsterdam, there was a hackathon after we announced the company.
Yeah, at Nostradam.
At Nostradam, yeah. And somebody at the hackathon actually built this out. So hopefully by the time you guys are hearing this, we'll have that up on the website as well. And it'll be, joinnextblock.com/vibrancy. And you'll be able to see this equation and you'll be able to put your actual NPUB in if you're a Nostr user. And it'll actually tell you not your neighborhood because that doesn't exist yet, but for your follower list, this is when you should be posting because this is when your follower list is most vibrant, AKA they're mostly online and we'll probably see what you post.
Yeah. And there's so many things going on, guys, and I don't want this episode to be too long, but I just think that's amazing. Like, we launched our company at the same day, had a bounty out for this thing, and someone built Vibrancy, and soon you will be able to know the vibrancy of your follow list. Like, it's just this whole community. It's just so cool. I just work in a completely different space where things don't get done this quickly. So I was like, this is amazing.
That is so true. I'm laughing because this is the speed at which I'm used to things happening. I'm like, oh, I didn't pay attention to Nostr for a month. What changed?
Yep, that's true. So yeah.
And you're like, things are happening fast.
What?
I'm like,
What?
This is how fast they happen.
I'm so excited to contribute that to the Nostr community first, but ultimately everything we build out will be open source. Most of the things, I don't know, but most of the things definitely. And so it's really cool that one thing's already done. We can send that out and people can experience that concept. But yeah, that's neighborhoods. And so we think that solves a lot of different problems, right? When we're talking about blocks and neighborhoods. And so you get on Nostr, that allows someone brand new to be able to really figure something out.
Yeah, they don't have to start blank or with a bunch of suggested followers. You just find one person that you know. Let's say you came and you know Jack Dorsey.
Yeah.
You go to Jack Dorsey's neighborhood and from there you have an experience. You're seeing what Jack Dorsey sees.
Yeah. And I think that there'll be some type of discovery for neighborhoods as well that we'll establish eventually. And the concept can only grow from there. We also have this idea for block parties where maybe we can link up with, some type of corny chat integration or Wave Lake integration where everyone's like hearing the same thing where they're hanging out. There's just so much we can do. But I think concept of this shared space where if you're in a neighborhood and I come into the neighborhood too, we're seeing the same stuff. And if we're members of that neighborhood, we could comment and be talking to each other. I mean, I think that's what we want. And I think that we're getting a taste of it, right? With Nostr, everything is in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're almost there. We're just like trying to find each other. And so that's why I really think this is an improvement. And I think, Ian and I have just thought about this so much. So we do think this is the best idea so far, right? That someone has had about how to make discovery possible. So you're in your neighborhood or you're in a neighborhood and you're walking. And all of a sudden you realize you're not in that neighborhood anymore. You're actually out in the city. So that's the next place that you can go on NextBlock. You can go to the city, which is just that relay that you're on, which will be the NextBlock relay. That's where you can do general discovery. So there's districts and intersections. And so, yeah, again, remember, we're like using new terms here. Districts are very simply a hashtag. So you can say hashtag
art.
There you go. Or you can do intersections, which are hashtag art and music. And so think about it. You can hop into the fashion district or you can go to the intersection of, food and travel. There's just a lot of possibility there for different micro communities to develop. And then again, the very cool thing is if you're hanging out in a district or hanging out at an intersection, it's a shared experience. Anyone else that's there is seeing the same stuff you are. So you're hanging out in the city. You've been walking around for a long time. Oh my God, it's not the city anymore. I saw a cow. I saw a deer. I saw a wolf. I'm in the wilds. What's the wilds, Ian? Am I safe?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the internet, so nothing bad can happen to you. But the wilds is basically, from a NextBlock user's perspective, this would be the rest of Nostr, right? So everything we just described previous to the wilds is all happening purely on the NextBlock relay because we are trying to create a specific experience for NextBlock users. The wilds is basically all the other relays that you may or may not be connected to. And you can go out into the wilds and see all the content of Nostr. We're not hiding it from you. Think of like AOL and, the original Internet Explorer button, right? Like we're not hiding the real internet. We're not hiding Nostr from you. But we want to let you know that if you go into this part of Nostr, NextBlock, the company, cannot protect you anymore. You're basically using an open source client to browse the rest of Nostr. But this is a place you can go do discovery as well. You can go to the art district of the wilds as well. But while you're out there, meeting strangers and maybe adding them to your contacts list or adding them to your neighborhood or your block, maybe you see some crazy stuff in public feed and you're like, I got to get out of here. Well, NextBlock actually gives you a place where you can actually get out of here without leaving Nostr. You can just jump back to your neighborhood or your block, and you now have that original experience of I'm only seeing what I want to see. We think that this is kind of like what's missing from Nostr, where if you don't really have a good curated experience for you when you first start, you kind of see a bunch of nonsense. There's not really a theme to it, at least with a neighborhood. If I'm starting from scratch and I go into a neighborhood that's like very obvious what I think the person would be making a neighborhood about, like if it's an athlete, for example, whether that person is doing a good job or curating or not, I at least have some expectation of what I'm going to see when I go there. When you come to just Nostr as a whole, there's what expectation can you have to set to see content?
I also think it lends to like personal responsibility. So
yes,
if I'm on Nostr, everything is up to me. What I see, what I post, all of these things, no one else is controlling, but no one else is also helping. Whereas on NextBlock, you have a lot of people that are doing the work and you can just benefit from it and enjoy it. But you got to give them a cut. If you have your ads on and you're making money, they're going to make money too. If your ads are off, if you've opted out, I want to be on NextBlock, but I don't watch any ads, it doesn't matter. You're not making money, so no one else is going to get screwed out of money that, they rightfully had earned. And I think that's one of the components of this business that I'm really excited about is that at every angle, we want to actually give value to anyone that's contributing value to the social media experience. So if you're someone who is posting good content on social media, like through value for value, you're going to get zaps, right? Right now on Nostr, there's no money coming in. And so people are just giving away their Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Whereas once we have an attention marketplace and everyone is making a little money every 10 minutes when they're scrolling and having a good time, they're going to have a pile of sats to be able to give away. And they're also going to be able to experience magic internet money for the first time. And they're going to have so much fun with it. And they're going to get ads while they're on NextBlock that it's going to, teach them more about Bitcoin services and Bitcoin wallets and all the other fun services that are available through Nostr. While they get onboarded, they're going to get purple and orange pilled just naturally, just organically, because they're going to see what Magic Internet Money and Magic Communication Portal allows to be possible now.
Like, one of the big things that I'm really excited about for NextBlock is it's not a Nostr app. It's not a Bitcoin app or wallet. It's a social media app that uses Bitcoin and Nostr to accomplish its goals. And that enables us to go talk to the rest of the world of people who use social media. Presenting a new social media company is the way to get people's attention. Presenting a new protocol is not. But you need that protocol to build that company. We believe that by creating a new social media app, that it can become the new cool social media app. And we all know that social media at the end of the day is about who's cool. So we just need to be the cool new app. And once we've convinced everyone that if you're not over here scrolling, making money, you're actually losing money using those other apps.
You're getting exploited.
You're getting exploited. We don't live in a world where there's an alternative to that model. So it's just like, it is what it is. But once there's one alternative to that model, you now have, as Bitcoiners know, there's an opportunity cost. Every 10 minutes that you're not using that app, you're losing money.
Okay, Ian, we got to talk about how we're going to build this. Like, we're in Amsterdam, we're in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. People are loving the idea. And then it's like, all right, well, what do you need? You need money, right? And we're like, I feel like this is where everything normally falls apart when it comes to a tech startup.
Yeah, usually when you take money from someone, they basically become part of the process, and they might not have the same intentions that you do at the end.
Like, the whole point is to not have a boss, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of being an entrepreneur. So when those questions were coming at us, Ian and I hadn't made a decision going into this, but without really talking about it while we were going through it, we were like, no, we don't want money. We don't want anyone's money. Nope, we don't want investors. Nope, we'll figure out something else.
The interesting thing is that the first thing we figured out about how to build it is the actual building it part. But what Mondan is talking about is the, how do we fund what we're going to build it, or what we're going to build. And so,
yeah, the how do you build it is really dependent on how much money you have and figuring out in what timeline you have that money until it runs out. All of those things, what I'm thinking about, like the business side of all of this is really important to me. But to think that someone could come in, throw some money at this project and possibly create like a very inorganic situation where we haven't done anything to earn that money.
Yep.
And we've just got it. Like, do we get complacent? Do we get lazy? Do we not build as efficiently as we should because it's not our money?
Yeah.
I feel very uncomfortable with things like gambling, right? We've talked about this early days of the pod where I was like, stocks make me uncomfortable because you're making money that you haven't earned. There are all these conversations that we used to have about it. And so I think, okay, we have a good idea. We have a good business. You and I are very capable people. Any person that talks to us about this seems confident that we'll get this done, right? And so it seems like in this space, it's a no-brainer for us to go and get investment funding. So let's say someone I'm just going to throw a crazy number, $1 million at us. And is like, here's $1 million, get this done. And then what do? I suddenly have $1 million that I've done nothing to earn. And how am I going to allocate that? Am I just going to hire my friends? We're probably likely going to want to hire people we know as this grows, right? So what? I immediately hire them. I give them maybe a high salary, get that work done. Maybe we take some business trips. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
I know what I'm saying. I'm just saying like and I'm just like, that's not who we are. That's not what this is supposed to be. It feels a little shitcoiny almost.
I mean, yeah, if you are actively scamming, then yeah.
Yes, if you're actively saying, whereas we're not, but I'm thinking about incentives, right? The attention marketplace is about incentives. How can we incentivize everyone so that at every step, nobody is getting exploited and nobody can exploit anyone, right? And so I'm like, all right, cool. We have this good idea. If people just want to throw money at us, maybe then we exploit people. I don't know. So the idea I had was, no, let's get money that we actually earn. And if not, if we don't earn it now, we'll earn it later. So what we are going to do is we are going to accept pre-buys from advertisers. So if you are interested in supporting NextBlock, the way you can do that is, of course, like share this episode of the pod, share our website, do all those fun things, give us your feedback on our idea. If you are a advertiser, you can just come and pre-buy the ad. You don't have to pay for the full ad, but just the fee that we have for advertisers. And we will use that money to develop first the attention marketplace and then the rest of the app. And it will fund the other work that we're doing around building NextBlock. We want to do this in a transparent way so that it's very clear how we're raising money. So everyone is aware of the source of funding that we're getting. It's not a mystery. Another way that you can support the project is go to the NextBlock Nostra page and just zap it. You don't have to even buy ads, but if that's how you want to support the project, you can do that. But this was very important to Ian and I that we make sure that our incentives are strong. So for me, I'm thinking if there are people that have given us their money and said, we believe in you and we believe in this app and we want it here sooner than later. And as soon as it's here for the beta, I want my advertisements on there. We're going to work hard for you. And we're going to try to do our best because we know that there are people that believed in this enough to advance that payment to us.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Interested to see how that plays out.
Any money that we get is going to go first to the development of the attention marketplace. And we have a really cool idea for how we're going to build that out. And so I'm going to pass it over to Ian to let him nerd out on it.
Thanks, babe. I'm an engineer. I've been a software engineer for about 20 years of my life, and I've worked on a lot of teams. One thing I will say is that most of them were dysfunctional for various reasons. And now as a Bitcoiner looking back on it, it was always because the incentives were wrong, right? Like fundamentally, it's always the incentives that were wrong that causes that dysfunction. Again, Mandana is new to like the tech world. This is her first tech company / startup / thing that she's paying attention to before it actually exists. And, you know, a lot of things for me, I just take for granted, like the hackathon in Amsterdam. So the guy built the thing, I guess, in, I'll just say like maybe 4 or 5 hours. Shout out to Bufo. When I was saying this to Mandana, she was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. We should do the whole app like that. And if you know what a hackathon is, you know that it doesn't produce the best code. No one expects to ever look at it again for the most part. You know, like hackathons are just, I'm going to show up, earn some money, maybe prove a point to somebody. That night we went out to dinner and I kept thinking about it because there was something there that I think is important, which is a strong incentive, right? Like he was incentivized to at least complete the task because there was money on the line that he could earn in that moment. As I was thinking about this more and more and more, I was like, okay, well, if it was a hackathon, but it was everyone gets paid, right? So imagine like 4 people come to a hackathon. They all attempt the same project. In normal hackathon terms, like the guy who wins, and everyone else kind of just wasted however much time they contributed to the hackathon. But what if everyone got paid? What if everyone was treated kind of like an employee because they contributed at least brain power to trying to solve the problem? But we are also going to determine like who had the best solution a la hackathon style. And so what I'm calling this is consensus-driven development. If you're an engineer, you know there's test-driven development, there's behavior-driven development, there's a couple other ones I don't remember off the top of my head. But with consensus-driven development, what I'm imagining is that we're actually going to source 4 candidates for a hackathon. Think of it as an invite-only hackathon. We are going to offer them this proposition where we are going to build out the open source version of the attention marketplace Nostr client. None of the NextBlock features, just the features in a client that we would need to have the attention marketplace actually working on the Nostr protocol. We at NextBlock, for the most part, are going to sketch out what we think that client looks like in its basic form. And then with these 4 invited candidates, we are going to feature by feature do a hackathon. And every feature that this app requires, each person is going to go out and attempt to build the best version of that feature that they think would solve the function of the hackathon, right? But the way that this works as consensus-driven development is once we've discussed what the feature is and we all kind of think the angle we should take, all 4 candidates then go off and try to build out what they think is the appropriate solution. And then they come back and the candidates themselves, vote on who they think provided the best solution. We'll debate it out. We'll talk about each person's attack and why they chose what they chose, but there'll be a conversation that we will record, and whoever's the candidates decide is the best solution, that code gets merged into the project and that person gets paid the most. But since everyone else contributed to the solution that we were trying to produce, everyone else gets paid something as well. And we think that we can do this to build out this open source client so that at the end of this process, either we have 4 great candidates to hire at NextBlock, or we have 4 great people now in the Nostr community that know how to build clients that have the attention marketplace in it. So we've kind of actually grown the ability to build on this protocol from this modified hackathon, aka consensus-driven development.
There's a skill set that you need to begin building on Nostr, and I saw Ian try that, and it just took him so much time, unnecessary time, for him to get small things that made everything click. And so I think this is also going to be a really great training program for anyone who wants to come in and just say like, all right, well, how do you build stuff? Okay, I'm just going to watch how the attention marketplace was built.
Yes.
Maybe I'll like play around, build something that works off of that. Maybe I'll build a better ad viewer. You know, if you could just talk about, you know, those entities that can participate in the attention marketplace that can get paid out every time an ad is watched, that would be helpful for our listeners. I hope everyone listening is giving the idea of NextBlock a chance and really giving the attention marketplace their attention to really think through what this means, because what the attention marketplace will ultimately be, I believe in the future, is going to be where a lot of activity is happening and a lot of different companies are going to need to connect to. And so we have to build it right so that it's as efficient as possible and it's serving everyone. We don't want to build something that benefits most people that are going to use it, but screws over some. And if we can avoid screwing over anyone and how this is built out, making sure that we consider everything, we're just going to be in such a better place. And again, this is all about mass Bitcoin and Nostr adoption. And so we don't want to get in our own way. And I really love doing it this way because I do think that my Bitcoin journey has just been so public on this podcast.
Uh-huh.
And this is my Bitcoin journey still.
Yeah, eventually, as a Bitcoiner, you start a company.
Yeah. And
you're just starting a social media company, apparently.
How can I not talk to the listeners about like what's going in my head about this? You know, for me, it's like, all right, well then this company is starting a social media app that's going to pay people Bitcoin to watch ads. Like this could very well just be something that you're reading off to me as a news article.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so it's like, well, what are they doing here? How are they paying for it? That's my question for everything. How do they pay for it? How do they make money? And, you know, that was my question for everything on this Nostr stuff. And Ian would just be like, generous Bitcoiners. It's generous Bitcoiners, Mandana. And I'm like, but how does that sustain? And how do we know if these are good people? How are we trusting them? And like, I'm sorry, I don't know Jack Dorsey. I get that he's like doing penance, right? I get all of that. But like, even he's got to know that there needs to be a business model. You've got to know there needs to be a business model, Jack. Come on. And so like, it can be the attention marketplace. It should be. And if you are a business right now in Bitcoin that is somehow honestly making money and is not debt-based and is not donor-based, like buy some ad time on NextBlock, because you should be advertising to people who believe in value for value and believe in the Bitcoin standard and not operating a Bitcoin company or a Nostr company on a fiat model. Like, right, I know I'm not crazy. And I had so many conversations with people about this who were saying like, no, in the beginning, it's got to be like through a project like OpenSats. And you need that support just to get that work done and get it built out. I don't disagree with that. But I think it takes that to get us to this point where or two people figure out the business model that's like, no, this is the way we can do it. It doesn't exploit anyone, right? Confirm with us. That's literally what Ian and I were doing last week. Last week we were like, are we exploiting anyone? Are we scamming anyone? Are we screwing anyone over? No one could tell us that we were. If we are, please tell us and we'll tweak our design. But this has got to be the goal for everything that we're doing. Everything that we're doing, I think the exploitation is on everyone's mind. I think it is. I think it's top of mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm noticing. The exploitation is top of mind, but it can still get exploited if it's relying on a person. It needs to be decentralized.
Yeah. So when we were in Amsterdam, I got to speak to Maya, the woman who's running for president of Suriname. She said something that was super interesting, which is like the marketing industry or advertising industry, or however you want to call it, basically the propaganda industry is centralized in the West. If anybody wants to do any type of advertising in the world, all of the ad agencies and everything like that are in the West. And so that just means that advertising as a whole has this like very Western slant. And so she was like, how does NextBlock solve that? If what is in my head existed right now, you could literally spin up your own ad agency in Suriname, put ads into this network, and there's no one to like say, oh, we don't want to run that because of X, Y, or Z.
Exactly.
And you get to pay the same price for everyone's attention as the people in the West as well. That was when she actually perked up, and she actually started paying attention. I just thought that was really interesting because I had never thought about that. So then that night when I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, it's like a advertising mercantilism where like all the attention has to flow through the West before it gets sold back out. And that's just a really crazy concept that when you say it out loud, it's so obvious, but I didn't realize that until she said that.
Yeah, I realized that. Yeah, because my focus for this app is more international than anything, which I think is like a really helpful perspective where like obviously, Ian, like you've only lived in the United States, right? Like whereas for me, the use case for social media is so tied to freedom in other countries than it is in America. In America, I feel like it's almost restricted our freedoms. It's allowed us to be manipulated faster, more efficiently. I wish NextBlock existed today for the exposure of like so many atrocities that are happening in the world right now. But also when I saw so many very small micro businesses, business owners, face light up and say, I would want to advertise on this. And because it's like,
because you're equal now.
Equal, and advertising is a waste of their time and money on any of these other platforms. They cannot compete.
And this is literally how our podcast became big, because we were buying ads on Fountain.
Yeah.
And Fountain is comprised of a self-selected group of people who have opted out of that particular business model when listening to podcasts.
Shout out to our Fountain heads.
80% of the people listening to this podcast are not in the United States. And Bitcoin is distributed and decentralized. And now Nostr needs to step up and decentralize its group as well, so that the NextBlock business model of advertising, basically we have this one ticker in the world, BTC. It is the price of money. And if this idea works, the attention marketplace will have a ticker, which is ATTN, and it will be the price. It will be the global price of attention at any given time. And that will be sourced from any and everybody who was willingly opted in to sell their attention. And that is something we don't have. And this was the idea that I had back in January when I was like, wow, that is a really big idea. I think it's real.
I think it's real. It's part of the reason Ian quit his job 5 months ago. It's the reason we started this company. We can't believe it's all happening, but it's happening.
And the craziest part about this is that if you have an honest business model, like which I believe NextBlock is, you don't care if someone else does your business. And that is the thing about NextBlock that is super interesting to me. I've lived in a world where it's like, oh, if you have a cool idea, you got to like hurry up and build it because someone's going to steal your idea. But with the attention marketplace, if someone wants to go do the attention marketplace, great. I'll just plug into that one.
Yeah.
Right? I'll just build NextBlock and I'll just plug into that one. And so you creating it first doesn't really give you any advantage. It just needs to exist. That is something that gives pace at which we can build this so much more breathing room. We are not rushing to market to beat a bunch of competitors. We are literally just building out infrastructure for everyone else to use.
This is what it is. It's infrastructure. I really see the attention marketplace as a public good, and I want to treat it like that. And that's why I think not necessarily public funded, but if it's funded by the advertisers,
It's funded in public.
it's funded in public. That's exactly
You will
what it
see
is.
who put money in because their ads will be in the system. It's that simple.
We can be as transparent as possible with how we built it so that in the future, when people ask, oh, wait, how is this all operated? The story can be, well, the social media company NextBlock, they're the ones that created it. They then open sourced it and they maintain it. It works. This is how it works. And yeah, since then, people, you get paid if you watch an ad. You don't really watch an ad anymore unless they're paying you. Like, that's what we think could happen maybe in 10, 20 years. Who knows? But that's what we're going to work towards. All right. So that's kind of going to be what the podcast is about from now on, I think.
The life of NextBlock.
Yeah. And you and me building it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
also talking about Bitcoin things that are happening along the way.
Of course. A lot of Bitcoin stuff. And so basically right now we just got back from our trip, spent some time with Keon, and we have a list of to-dos. A big one is getting the website ready so that when this episode drops, you guys all go to our website and can take the call to action that you have and get it done. We're so excited to keep you guys in the know and posted. There might be a few events in November that either one of us or both of us will travel to, so stay tuned. We're really excited, and we are so grateful that you are on this journey with us.
Get the power back, get the freedom back, get an NPUB, and just start with that.